guys, welcome to Dimitra's Dishes. So today I'm going to be teaching you how to make coconut Ravani, which is another way to say coconut semolina cake that's going to be drenched in a honey syrup that's infused with lemon. It's going to be delicious. I've made plain semolina cake, the Greek style Ravani, on this channel a few maybe years ago, kind of towards the beginning of the channel. So I'll link for that recipe down below. It's pretty similar. We're gonna go over the ingredients and then we're gonna get started. But before that, I'll tell you that anytime that we start with a syrupy sweet, or in Greek it's called syropiasto, we always begin with the syrup because the syrup should cool down. That way we can pour it right on top of the hot cake once it's ready. Let's go over the ingredients and then we're gonna get started. So for the syrup, I have a little bit of honey in here. Greek honey is my favorite, but use whatever you can get. I have a little bit of sugar and water, so we're gonna combine that in a minute. But let's go over the cake ingredients. So for the cake, we're gonna need all-purpose flour, semolina flour, and I like the finely ground semolina flour if you can get it, a little pinch of salt, and some baking powder. We have some light olive oil, or you could use whatever vegetable oil that's pretty flavorless. We need some sugar, some shredded sweetened coconut, vanilla extract, a little bit of almond extract. We're going to use lemon zest for the cake and the lemon juice for the syrup, and then we have some eggs in here. So for the syrup, I'm going to combine the honey and the sugar and the water, and in the syrup we're going to use the juice, but anytime you're using zest, you're going to want to zest that first and then juice the citrus. So I'm using lemon today, but you can totally use orange or whatever favorite citrus you have. I'm going to zest the citrus right here over our dry ingredients. And then I'm going to squeeze all of the juice of this lemon, it's a medium-sized lemon, into the pot. And then we're going to move on. Lemon is zested. Now I'm just going to get the juice out of here. And then I'm going to put this over medium-high heat. The syrup is basically just going to come to a boil, and while that's happening, I'm just going to stir it every now and then. As soon as it boils and the sugar is completely dissolved, you want to turn it off the heat. You don't want to let it boil for too long because then it's going to get kind of thick and it'll be hard to pour over the cake and have the cake absorb it. So just as soon as the sugar dissolves, take it off the heat. So while the syrup is getting ready, we're going to add our sugar to our eggs. Now you want to make sure that the eggs are at room temperature, so take them out a couple hours before you're ready to use them. But if you're watching this video and you just look at it and you're just like, I want to make this right away, and your eggs are still cold, just take them while they're in their shell and put them in a bowl of warm water and keep switching out that water until the eggs feel like they're at room temperature. That's a quick tip for you. So I'm going to lock this mixer and then I'm going to beat it on very high until they're thick and pale and yellow and really nice and fluffy. All right, so once the eggs become really nice and foamy like that, we're going to add our olive oil. Now, I'm using almond extract because almond and coconut go really nice together, but if you're not a fan of almond extract, just leave it out. I'm putting a teaspoon of almond extract and a teaspoon of vanilla extract. I always put a heaping teaspoon, so you don't have to worry about it. Extra vanilla, no problem. Just don't put too much almond because then it'll be overpowering. And then I'm going to beat this again until it just incorporates and stays really nice and fluffy. So our syrup is also ready. It came to a boil. The sugar is dissolved and it's nice and light. And now I'm just going to turn it off the heat. Take it off the heat actually, and then I'm going to allow it to cool down. Even actually, once the cake goes in the oven, I'm going to put it in an ice bath so I can make sure that it's really, really nice and cold. Now, I'm going to mix all of my dry ingredients together so that way they're all well combined and you don't get a big chunk of baking powder in your food, in your cake, because that doesn't taste good. So in 3 batches, I'm going to add the dry ingredients, whisking very, very slowly. So I'm going to let this mixer go on like a very low speed to not deflate the eggs that we beat up and they've become so nice and fluffy. Just like that. Don't let all of the flour incorporate because now we're going to add our sweetened coconut flakes. And at this point, you could also add in some raisins if you wanted to. If you like cardamom and coconut goes really nice together. These are cardamom pods. What you want to do is basically take the seeds out and use those. So you can use 2 or 3 or maybe even 5 if you like the flavor. Cardamom pods, just take out the outside and take the seeds and mash them up or grind them up as fine as you can, like as in a powder. You can do that in a high-speed blender or in a coffee grinder or even using a mortar and pestle. If you like that mentholy type of flavor that they add, you can go ahead and add that in as well. And at this point, I'm just going to give it a nice mix. Then I'm going to take it out and I'm just going to fold the rest in by hand using a spatula because I really do not like to risk over mixing a cake. Then that takes away from the lightness of it. So just with a spatula, you want to go all the way from top to bottom, just folding it in, making sure everything is incorporated. Don't overdo it. That should be good. So my oven is preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. I have a 9-inch round baking pan that I have lined with parchment paper, and then I've greased it really nicely with oil. I'm just gonna pour all my batter in here, and then I'm gonna pop it in the oven in the center rack, of course, so it bakes evenly. And I'm gonna let it bake for 25 minutes until a toothpick inserted comes out clean in the center. And then as soon as it comes out of the oven, we're gonna pour the syrup over it, and it's gonna be delicious. So it took exactly 30 minutes for our cake to bake, and it's supposed to look golden, and then as soon as you insert a clean toothpick in the center, it should come out clean or with some crumbs attached. That's how you know it's ready. Now, as soon as it comes out of the oven, by that time the syrup should have cooled. Now, my favorite way to cool syrup in a jiffy, like really quickly, is to take a larger mixing bowl or any big bowl that you have that's maybe metal and put some ice in there and a little bit of water. And if the syrup sits in there for like 15-20 minutes or the time that the cake is baking in the oven, it cools down perfectly and it's the perfect temperature. And now we're going to pour the syrup over the cake. But before we do that, where did that toothpick go? Here it is. Okay, so you just want to take the same toothpick that you checked with, or a skewer, whatever you have, and just poke all around the cake. So that way there are little like nooks and crannies and little places where the syrup can go in and absorb evenly. And then we're going to do one more thing with a butter knife. Just take it all around the cake pan to release the cake from there. And then we're just going to pour the syrup on top. Go all around. Just like that. Now at this point, you definitely don't want to try and take it out of the pan. It should sit in the pan for at least 1 to 2 hours, preferably overnight. Once it cools down, you can put it in the refrigerator and let it sit there. Then right before you're about to take it out of the pan, run the knife around one more time to release it, and then take it out and put it on a beautiful pedestal, which I have one already. I made one ahead of time, just so that way this video can go faster, and you know, I can give some gifts to my neighbors and we can enjoy with like a nice cup of tea or coffee. Let me show you what it looks like. Here it is. It's elegant. It's simple to make. It's so aromatic and beautiful. Sometimes I feel like I'm trying to sell something on the Home Shopping Network to you guys, but really it's the best way for me to explain what this looks like without you being here, because I really want you to make it and I really want you to enjoy it and share it and just like spend time with friends and family with something that's so easy to put together. You know, make this, call people over, make a cup of tea, sit down, have a good time, and everything will be really nice because you'll have really nice memories to look back on. It doesn't have to be really fancy. You don't have to do a whole feast to have a good time with friends and family. Just something simple like this, and you're good to go. But if you want to be extra fancy, make sure volunteer at the next get-together that you're going to bring dessert and make a cake like this, and believe me, everyone is going to love it. Here it is. I don't know if you could see how moist it is. It's not too syrupy. Sometimes when people see syrup added to a cake, or to a dessert, they get kind of worried, like, oh my God, is this going to be too sweet or too syrupy? It really isn't, because the cake itself only has half a cup of sugar. If you want to leave the syrup out, I mean, if you really had to, if you're just not digging syrupy things, then just add a little bit more sugar, maybe half a cup or a cup more of sugar to the cake batter, and you'll have yourself a really nice coconut semolina cake. But top this with a scoop of ice cream if you wanted to get extra fancy, or some homemade whipped cream, and you will be in heaven. Really nice. The semolina gives it texture because it's a little heavier than flour, so it gives it that really nice bite. It just it makes the cake more hearty, but keeping it light at the same time. I have also made this by adding a half a cup of ground almonds, and that also adds a little bit of crunch to it. You could do that as well. It's just perfect. The lemon, the almond, and the coconut go really nice together, especially, this is a nice holiday cake to make, but it's also nice in the summer. As always, this recipe will be in the description box right underneath the video and on the website www.dimitrasdishes.com. Make it, let me know what you think, comment down below, and let me know what else you'd like to learn how to make. Let me know how you made it and how you switched it up. Some people have versions of this, like from their own country or family. Let me know what those are. Thank you so much for spending time with me today, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye, everyone.